it's not controversial, how controversial Bitcoin really is, given that we have seen the stimulus package being signed, those checks going out. How much further does this rally have to run?
Oh, Heidi, well, that's the million-dollar question when it comes to Bitcoin. It has been a stunning rally. And, you know, what we've seen over the weekend is that it has been caught up in this, sort of buy everything momentum, if you like, following that stimulus package in the U.S. Also, more confidence about the economy with the vaccines being rolled out. And interestingly enough, apparently Bitcoin now is equivalent to 35 ounces of gold. Now, that's about twice as much as it was at the beginning of the year. So it just shows you how spectacular this rally has been. I mean, look, one of the reasons is that it is getting increasing institutional interest and attention. It's champions of Bitcoin see it as as a store of value, akin to gold, if you like. And that can act as a hedge against inflation. And we know that these inflationary concerns are now out there, and also against a weaker dollar. So they're also pointing out to it being different to the last boom and bust in Bitcoin because of this wider uptake with, Tesla's $1.8 billion investment, Elon Musk endorsing it, and also investors like Mike Novogratz, one of the biggest proponents of Bitcoin and digital coins, saying that it could reach $100,000 by the end of the year. So at this stage, look, it's anyone's guess, I guess.
So an incredible rally also for Cardano. What's the story there?
Yeah, look, that's right. That's Cardano. The reason that's sort of in the headlines, I guess, right now is because its market value recently surged to $34 billion. That placed it behind Bitcoin and Ethereum as the third biggest cryptocurrency. And again, it's caught the eye of investors like Mike Novogratz, loyal following on Reddit. But look, there are still issues with this particular digital coin. Its network lacks many of the functionalities available on more established rivals. But look, one explanation for the sudden interest in Cardano is that it is an alternative to Ethereum, possibly.
What do you make of this surge to $60,000?
It's all in the process. We've obviously got a huge macro element of what's going on here, with the Fed with no other way out of its current predicament than to just continue to print money. They've got two major problems. Obviously, they are battling a lack of growth, but they're also battling the fact that they have a $28 trillion debt pile in the United States. So if they can't get growth, they can't stimulate jobs, then they can't end up diminishing that pile. So the only way that they can actually attack it at all is by devaluing it. And so this is what we're starting to see here. Massive monetary stimulus against the devaluation of the dollar. And that is having a push effect onto Bitcoin, which is already having a supply side crisis due to the halving that we saw May 20 last year. And, then you're starting to see corporate adoption, institutional adoption to a degree that is so extreme. You've got four companies in MicroStrategy, Tesla, Square, and now recently Maitu. Between those four companies, they bought 40% of the annual supply of Bitcoin in just a few months. So we really have a supply side crisis in Bitcoin. This is only the early stage of the rally. Things are going to get a lot more heated from here.
So digital assets becoming more compelling in 12 months. What price will it be for Bitcoin?
I think we're modeling out about 175,000 for the price of Bitcoin by the end of this year. We think that the way that we're obviously starting to see this institutional adoption is really quite key, as well as obviously the corporates. You're seeing macro hedge fund managers that have been in the space for some time. You're now starting to see some of the bond guys get involved in this space, and this is quite critical. I mean, they've obviously been looking at 20s of trillions of dollars of negative yielding paper, and they're looking around trying to see how does this paradigm shift, and started to look at Bitcoin and understand how this is actually a better store of value than gold, and it's digital, and every aspect that it compares itself to gold, it's actually improving on gold. So if you look at various aspects of stock to flow, the way that we've already seen 18.6 million Bitcoin already be mined out of the 21 million supply, we're already starting to run into an interesting ratio on a stock to flow basis. And so we think that probably by end of October into the latter part of the year, we're going to see that peak. And it could end up running through that, but 175,000 is where we've modeled out.
Many crypto players are looking to list, accelerating a trend which started last year. Will it be too crowded a market?
There's obviously a lot of players in crypto. I think we've seen 300 different exchanges globally. I think the change that you're going to see is the big focus on regulation. Even last week, we started to see even more action from the CFTC around exchanges that were accessing US residents. So regulatory focus is going to be the key. That was always the aspect we came from when building Diginex. But also, I think, a very heavy focus around KYC and AML. FATF, the global regulator, is implementing what's referred to as the travel rule this year, which is actually more stringent regulatory guidelines around crypto than we see for the current banks. So that's going to roll out this year, and we're going to see a lot of exchanges really struggle with how to actually deal with that within their frameworks.
Richard, what are the obstacles to Bitcoin going to levels that you just mentioned? And what about the whole idea of the blockchain behind it and the anonymity that it actually does have? Many regulators have looked at this very closely. What would happen if that anonymity was taken away from Bitcoin? What would happen to this currency, and what would happen to others which are also anonymous?
Well, actually, Bitcoin isn't anonymous. Once you start to be able to track who owns what wallets, then you can very easily map all the transactions within the network. In fact, the FBI, they use this quite effectively to track down criminals and shut down criminal activity. So Bitcoin itself is not particularly anonymous. The blockchain, it can be tracked very, very easily. We use the blockchain tracking tools to monitor all assets coming into our exchange. So I think that the idea of Bitcoin being anonymous is probably a little bit old, given what we're seeing around this FATF regulatory guidelines. This is all about identification of these wallets. So what you're going to effectively see is complete clarity around the Bitcoin network and what that brings. In terms of what can get in the way of the price, I think that if we did see a continuing spike in interest rates and for some reason the Fed deciding to reverse course, that would put a bit of a dampener on things. But as I mentioned earlier, I mean, the Fed is not in a position to be able to do that. They can risk deflation at no cost. It's absolutely impossible that they could allow for that to happen, especially when you've got a longer term technological backdrop that is very deflationary. You think about general purpose AI, self-driving cars, solar energy, all of these things are removing the human capital element of their production. And so jobs are going to be lost in droves, and the Fed is very aware of that. So even though they may react in the short term with a brief uptick in rates, they're going to be pulling that back very, very quickly.
Richard, you've also launched a coin, haven't you? Tell us a bit about it, and what about the interest that you've managed to garner?
Sure. So we launched the coin for earning tomorrow morning. We're not actually doing any kind of sale of the coin. This is the first time that an exchange is doing a no sale earning token. So effectively, people come onto the platform, they can earn it by trading, and then subsequently they earn it by staking it. So it's got attributes of Bitcoin in that it is finite. It's got 21 million tokens that will ever be issued. It has a block reward daily, so an even block reward schedule. Those blocks halve in reward size every 90 blocks, and the issuance process goes on for about 2 years. So it's a little nod to Bitcoin and our support, obviously, of that asset, but also with the staking element is a little bit towards that DeFi world where you can get yield daily on your Echo coin.